The next speaker I am about to announce is also on that list of Republican Liberty Caucus endorsees, and that, of course, is Terri McCormick. Terri McCormick is a small businesswoman who, with her husband, owns a public relations and publishing company. She's an author of the book, What Sex is a Republican? A former three-term state legislator running for Congress against one of the guys we most desperately need to get rid of, Dr. Steve Kagan, over in CD8, Green Bay, Appleton, all the way to the Michigan border, if I remember correctly. Terri, the microphone is yours.
Welcome to the first, but not the last, Campaign for Liberty Conference. Let's give each other a round of applause. Now, we have an interesting path ahead of us in these coming elections. As proud Americans, it's hard to believe that the once covert Cold War has taken center stage in our own country. But it has. Now it's center stage here in our fight for our liberties, freedoms, and our constitutional way of life. As a citizen leader, author, self-term limited legislator, I've been in that war for almost 15 years, and yes, I am that old. I've got the glasses and bifocals to prove it. As a mother, I'm fearful, just as so many parents are, for their children and for the opportunities and for the way of life that we have been able to enjoy in this country. Today, it's suddenly cool for candidates to come across your stage and tell you that they're against big spending, they're against earmarks, they know what the terminology is, and they know what to say before the crowds. But what I'd like to ask all of you to do is to ask all of them, what were they doing between 2000 and 2008 when Republicans were in charge? Let me tell you what I was doing. In 2000, I was running a successful educational consulting business because parents and students weren't getting the basic literacy skills. Because I was asked to write government and political science curriculums, coach mock trial teams in the parochial schools, and to step it up to make sure that No Child Left Behind wasn't a theory. It was No Child Left Behind because adults are accountable for the children in their classroom and their learning. In 2001 to 2006, I self-term limited before I began in the Wisconsin State Legislature. I believed in term limits, I believe in constitutional principles, and I wanted to walk my talk. While I was there, we had a lot of success because we formed grassroots coalitions across my state house seat and throughout the state of Wisconsin, with small business owners, with families, with individuals who identified problems. Let me share some of the major reforms that we were able to write and pass into law. The first Small Business Regulation Reform Act that pushed back the bureaucracies from small businesses and proved to legislators that, yes, the people are only safe when the legislature is out of session. It required all legislators to write an economic impact statement before they could pass any law that would affect business or jobs. Another reform, we enacted the competitive prescription drug purchasing pool for state employees. I chaired that subcommittee of healthcare reform, and I used a business model to put those ideas together. You know, define the problem, look for private sector solutions, let free market enterprise solve the problem and get government off the back. It works. I worked to expand public charter school law. It was a law I was rather fond of. In 1994, I wrote it. Was the first private sector president of the Wisconsin Charter School Association, and I have the arrows in my back to prove it, believe me. Lastly, the bill I'm most proud of was to get a property tax rebate from 100% combat disabled veterans in this country. There are freedom fighters here among us. If you're a veteran, I thank you. As someone who comes from a family of veterans and has felt the sacrifice and the ultimate sacrifice of a nephew, I thank all of you. Now, I'd like to say that my Republican leadership front row was with me and cheering me on and helping me to get those reforms and bills passed, but I would be telling a fib. My Irish grandmother would not have that. I wouldn't toe their line. I didn't agree to the deals behind the scenes, and I built coalitions with conservative members in both caucuses because we had to get something done, and I was about ready to get something done for my constituents. Under my leadership as chair of the Economic Development Committee, we saw a spike. We saw something unusual for the first time in Wisconsin legislative politics. Our economy actually improved, and it spiked in 05 and 06, all to the hard work of small business owners who cheered me on with the Small Business Regulation Reform Act, who cheered me on to make sure that we toppled over the Capco monopolies so that we had capital flowing in on a competitive basis to business and industry that grew jobs. My vision today for this nation, running for the United States House of Representatives, same as yours. Same as every freedom-loving American. We need smaller government. It's too expensive. We can't afford it. How can we have capital to invest in small businesses and grow jobs if we're paying all the freight for a bloated government that does nothing but encroach on your freedoms and liberties?
That's right.
I know it's a surprise to some folks in power, but government doesn't create jobs. We laugh here, but you go to Washington and you go into the inner circles of Madison and they don't understand that small, simple fact.
Maybe in China.
Unfortunately, with the Obama health care scheme that has just passed, you have heard many, many speakers refer to, and not threaten and not provide fear, but to guarantee you that we will have 16,000 new employed IRS agents very willing to figure out if you bought the right shoe for the right foot that doesn't fit your foot anymore because you don't get to choose your health care. We've got to change that. And if I'm elected to Congress, the first thing I'm going to do is repeal this nonsense. The United States needs a government that promotes free market enterprise. That's been the spirit and the engine of this country all along. We need to get it back. That's why we need to win these elections. You know, Ron Paul has an excellent idea. Let's audit the Federal Reserve. Isn't it time we figured out who's making decisions and on whose behalf so that the American people get more of their own tax money back in their pocket where it belongs? Limited government requires that taxpayers receive the full value of every dollar that is spent. It's your money. It's not people elected into public office, and it's time that we made sure that everybody in Washington and Madison understood that fact.